Right. Which teams are going to be making the playoffs?
My pick, I think two of the four are a given in most people's book. So MI and CSK.
Yep.
And I'm going to say DC, Delhi Capitals. They remain my favorite. My favorite for the sake of having an open tournament as well.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a very tough tussle between RCB and SRH, the nemesis,
Wow.
for the fourth playoff spot. So
Wow.
those are my four teams.
Wow.
What
So
about you?
so so no KKR in your predictions this time.
Um, well, I can only fit four, so
Well, I don't disagree with your predictions that much. I think Mumbai and CSK are probably they're teams which know how to succeed. So I think and the strength of the squad, the conditions that the games are going to be played in. I think MI and CSK definitely in the playoffs. Not necessarily 1 and 2, but definitely in the playoffs. Um, Delhi Capitals, I think, given the fact that they've had the consistency in the team and a good core of Indian players, which especially this year will make a lot of difference given that the pitches are going to be slower. So you expect that the Indian batsmen would be more comfortable playing with playing on slower pitches. So I think that gives them a great chance. Um, and I'm probably going to stick my neck out and say, maybe this is the year, maybe RCB make it to the playoffs once again.
ಈ
Uh,
ಸಲ
I'm
cup ನಮ್ಮದೇ. Okay.
and I'm just hoping
Yes.
that that they get the combinations right, and we've got a new face in the playoffs this year.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Okay, and
So
and
it appears that both of us have been unreasonably harsh on KKR. So let's see.
well, I,
Yeah.
I think for one, despite me, uh, you know, uh, backing Shubman Gill to have a brilliant tournament, I think there are other areas that they're going to struggle in, especially noticeable lack of spinners, which might probably hurt them, and because you've got to remember, I think Kuldeep is coming off a difficult 12-18 months. Narayan is not the same spinner that he was. And outside and leaving aside these two, they don't have any other frontline spinner. And again, if they were playing in Eden Gardens, I would have probably favored them more. Given that they're going to be playing in the UAE, I think they're going to have a difficult year, unless Dre Russ, shows some of his magic and gets him over the line in a few games.
Yeah.
Uh,
We'll see.
and who?
We'll see.
Yeah, well, let's see. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting few weeks. And of the four that you've picked, or you actually picked five, and I asked you for four. So who do you think is going to win?
DC.
Wow. All right. Okay. Um, I, I admire your courage in picking a new team. And as much as I want to say CSK, I think it's probably going to be Mumbai.
Come
Um,
on.
I think it's probably going to be Mumbai.
I mean, give us some new name. Um,
Well,
yes, Mumbai is a strong contender. We know it'll make it to the playoffs. But then once it makes it to the playoff, it's anybody's game, right?
I'm not going to be a stickler for sentiment. I think I'm just looking at hard facts. My prediction, um, I think it's going to be Mumbai. I think it's going to be very difficult for, as I said, their squad has to suffer a massive loss of form, have some injuries, and the other teams need to capitalize on it to be, for Mumbai to not be able to win this year. So that's my
It's hard
bold
to argue.
prediction.
It's hard to argue. I must confess.
Yeah.
But as much as I agree with your prediction, I believe DC has just as good a chance.
Uh,
So let's see.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's my bold yet predictable prediction. All right,
that
moving on
wasn't
to a
very
couple of
bold, I must say. Yeah.
well, let's not brag about that. Moving on to a couple of other categories. Orange cap. Who do you think is going to score the most runs this year?
Ah, okay. Please allow me to have three picks.
Okay, you're keeping up with the theme of of how you've been answering your any questions that I
Okay.
post. So
Yes, it's even more challenging. There aren't just 8 teams here. There are just a big pool of players. So KL Rahul.
okay,
Joss Butler,
All right.
David Warner. One among the three. I'm sorry, I'm not going with the cliche options. I know. Um, I'm still a big Kohli fan. I'm still a big Rohit Sharma fan. But this is not about uh, 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 what I. This is not about my partisanship, but this is what I would like to see, and I think the tournament will be richer if any of these three players actually shine to the level that they are actually a contender for the orange cap.
I think you're just covering your backside with this last couple of sentences. Anywho, that's still not going to get you away from your answers. So you've gone for KL Rahul, David Warner, and Joss Butler. One out of these three for the orange cap. When I asked you for one answer, my response, my pick for the orange cap is going to be Shubman Gill, and I think he's desperate to prove himself, and I think Kolkata will play him at the top, should play him at the top, and I think if he does play at the top, he has the maximum opportunities to prove himself, and I think he will have a brilliant tournament. Um,
He at least needs to make it to the playoffs then.
well, it's funny you say that because of the four options, of the four options that we've got there, none of the teams, potentially only Hyderabad was one of the potential options you suggested, which would make the playoffs. KL
True.
Rahul, Kings 11 Punjab, Joss Butler, Rajasthan Royals, Shubman Gill, KKR. None of these teams have been slated to make it to the playoffs in our predictions. So yeah.
That's
So does
just
it?
how inconsistent we are with our predictions. But yeah,
Exactly,
that's the
exactly.
fun in the
So,
game. Yeah.
well, I think as I said in the previous video about CSK, for CSK, it's never about one performer; it's a collection of performers. So I think it's similar for Mumbai as well. If you look at their performance over the last couple of years, it's been a mix of Rohit Sharma has not necessarily had the greatest of IPLs over the past couple of years, but the combination of Quinton de Kock, Surya Kumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan, Krunal Pandya. I think they've always had people, Kyron Pollard. So they've always had people sort of stepping up and playing the right innings at the right time for them. So I think that's what has helped those teams be more successful. Whereas Andre Russell last year, he was the MVP for the tournament. But where did KKR end? They were fifth place, I think. So they didn't even make the playoffs. So individual performance only take your team so far.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think our predictions are at least the team predictions are incorrect. Player predictions, who knows? Right. So that was the orange cap. Then we move on to the purple cap for the highest wicket taker this year. And what's your prediction?
We'll keep it quick. Rashid Khan, period.
One option? Are you for once sticking to the template? All right. Okay. So Rashid Khan says, Nags, I am going to stick my head out and select Imran Tahir because
Wow. Okay.
I think in Harbhajan's absence, I think they would want an experienced leg spinner, and Tahir is coming off again splendid form in the CPL, and I would definitely like to see more of the chest beating, running to the boundary celebrations after he takes every wicket. So I think my money is on Imran Tahir, especially given the conditions that they're going to be playing in.
Bold bet, but not far off the mark. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be
And
one of
again,
the spinners, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next category is the emerging player of the tournament. So I think essentially what we're trying to say is not necessarily a new face, but someone, even if someone who's played in the previous IPLs, who's not had a lot of opportunities, but is going to really make a name for themselves. This is different from the MVP, the player of the tournament. That's coming up later. Emerging player, your pick.
Yashasvi Jaiswal. Uh, Watching him play the Under 19 World Cup, opening the batting for India across oppositions, the maturity with which he played the pace, he could actually play the long innings. So, in the absence of a good Indian opening option for RR, he is more likely to play all the games. So, we'll see the best of him, hopefully. So, yeah, he's certainly worth one to bet on.
In a shocking turn of events, I'm going to agree with you and pick Jaiswal as
See,
well.
yes. Our picks for the teams in the playoffs were not far off as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as shocking.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. MVP. player of the tournament. Who's your pick?
Yeah, Hardik Pandya.
Okay,
Yeah, he's been a very colorful cricketer for so many reasons.
the right
He's
adjective.
yes. So actually, yeah, it's not far off to think that he could add another feather to his cap here. Colorful cap.
All right. And again, I'm going to stick with the same team, but go for a different player. I think Kyron Pollard is going to be the MVP in this
Yeah.
year's tournament. He is coming off. I think he's had a couple of years where he his form dipped. He was dropped by MI, but they still kept him in the team. He's been an incredibly important member of the team for several years now, and he's had a resurgence in his career. And I think it's culminated with a brilliant performance in the CPL. He's scored runs, taken wickets, was captaining the Trinbago Knight Riders, and he was the player of the tournament in the Caribbean Premier League as well. So I think, given all of that, I think he's going to definitely get a lot of opportunities to play for Mumbai. He's definitely going to get runs for them coming in late in the order because he's got the ability to clear the boundary at ease. He's always around taking catches nobody else is contemplating, and I think he's also had an
Despite his
uptick
size.
despite his size, and he's also had an uptick in his bowling form. So and his style of bowling, the cutters on slower pitches, I think would yield him a fair number of wickets. So I think Hardik Pandya for you, but Kyron Pollard for me.